If you're running processes with Nintex, you may be thinking about the future. Many organizations are currently searching for alternatives because of the upcoming retirement and end of support. One option is the Skybow Studio. But what exactly changes when you move from Nintex to Skybow? In this video, we'll walk exactly through that. Let's go! Before we talk about Skybow, let's briefly have a look at how Nintex workflows typically work. In Nintex workflow for Office 365, you usually build processes using a visual form designer. You drag and drop actions onto a workflow canvas, connect them together, and define the process logic. Typical start options include start a workflow manually, run it on a schedule, or start it when an item was added or has changed. Once the process is finished, you publish it. Afterwards, the process runs typically as a workflow in the background workflow engine. So the core concept is a process runs as a workflow triggered by events in the background. Now let's look at how processes are typically built in Skybow Studio. The starting point in Skybow is the form when you build a new solution for SharePoint Online, SharePoint Server SE, or SharePoint 2019. Before building the automation, you start by designing a SharePoint form which represents the user interface. This is where users enter, view, or interact with the data in SharePoint. Once the form is in place, you build the automation on top of it. For example, you can place automation action buttons on the form. Once one of them is clicked, a workflow is triggered. You can also start workflows with other event triggers or run it on a schedule. The actual process logic is defined in the drag and drop Skybow Action Builder, where you create all your automation action steps. So instead of designing a long background workflow, the automation is directly connected to the data, the form, and the user interaction. In other words, in Skybow, the form is the core and you build the automation around it. So how do you actually rebuild your Nintex workflows in Skybow Studio? The first step always is to analyze your actual Nintex workflows. Look at these three things. What triggers your workflows? What actions happen inside your workflows? How the workflow reads and updates data in SharePoint. Once you understand this structure, you can start to translate it into the Skybow approach. The first design decision is the form. Design the form according to the process steps. For example, which fields represent the process status, which rows need to interact with the process, which information should the user enter or review, and at which points should the user be able to trigger an automation action. Based on this information, you design the form layout in the Skybow Form Designer, which is part of the Skybow Studio. Next, you translate the Nintex starting points into Skybow automation. For example, if a Nintex workflow started manually by a user, you might place an action button on a form. If an Nintex workflow is triggered when an item is added, you would typically start the workflow after first save. If a process should run in the background, you can use triggered and scheduled background action. The actual process logic is then built in the Skybow Action Builder, which is part of the Skybow Studio 2. There you can recreate the original workflow steps using the Skybow automation actions such as conditions, loops, and all the other pre-configured Skybow actions. So instead of building a large background workflow, the process is a combination of form interaction and background automation. Another important difference between Nintex and Skybow is how solutions are managed. In Nintex, you typically publish your workflow directly inside SharePoint. Same goes with updates to the workflow. In skybow, we provide features such as built-in version control, rollback capabilities, and package-based deployment to SharePoint Online, SharePoint Server SE, and SharePoint 2019. This gives you the chance to move your solution between different environments, for example, from deployment to test and finally to production. When updating your skybow solution, you can decide exactly which parts of the solution should be published to your production environment thanks to the skybow selective deployment feature. This provides a more controlled lifecycle management for your solutions. If you're running Nintex workflows and need to plan the next steps, now is the right time to start. At skybow, we've helped many organizations analyze, redesign, and rebuild their Nintex workflows using Skybow Studio. If you'd like to learn how this could work for your environment, just book a free call with one of our experts. The link is in the description below. Thanks for watching the video. See you in the next one. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you want to learn more about how to build smart SharePoint solutions.